Yeah. So that is indigenous people. So concept of culture is associated with them. So that is what I'm talking about. And then these are distinct cultural groups, basically. This is the basic definition. Then there is this Indian knowledge system, which is being talked about quite a lot currently. So what is Indian knowledge system? Principally, practically, if we go by the definition of the Indian government and go by the definition of UGC, then we have to say that the knowledge system that has been documented in ancient Indian texts. So text is very important here, Sanskrit text or any other text. So now what happens to the knowledge systems or knowledge epistemologies that the indigenous communities have developed? So are they not part of the greater or the larger Indian knowledge systems? Because we are living in the same geographical area. So when we say about Indian knowledge system, we are essentially talking about a geography, that is India, which is widespread. So whatever knowledge epistemologies have been developed in this geography, within this geography, should be essentially part of the Indian knowledge system. But then scholars have for many years, like from more than a century, they have talked about traditional knowledge rather than Indian knowledge. Indian knowledge is a very recent term, but traditional knowledge, yeah, traditional knowledge they have been talking about, or indigenous knowledge. So my preference is always, although I am part of the Indian knowledge system center, my preference is always about the indigenous knowledge or the indigenous traditional knowledge. So when we are talking about water management, then there are two aspects, two sides to view it. About the water management that we know from the Indian text, Sanskrit text, and about the water management practices that we know from the traditional knowledge. So I'm trying to put this entire idea within this framework. So there, like whenever we are talking about water management practices of Assam, there is no point talking about Sanskrit text or what has been mentioned in Rig Veda or Shukla Yajur Veda or Atharva Veda. Atharva Veda mentions about water management, or Artha Shastra. There are things that are mentioned there. There are a lot of shlokas, but they don't apply to the traditional practices. So traditional practices are essentially out of the textual references. So we are going to find out a way to put this into it. So what is the methodology that I use? Of course, I'm an archaeologist. So my preferred methodology will be to find out archaeological remains within it. So what are the archaeological remains that we find within the about water management practices in Assam? So then after doing that, we can probably try for the development perspectives, which is also part of Indian knowledge systems. So Indian knowledge system essentially is looking for innovative ways to make further development. So yeah, traditional water management system. This is only a photo I have got from internet, so I'm sorry about that. But traditional water management in Assam. So what we are talking about when we are talking about water management, the word di or dwi. So whenever we are talking about indigenous communities of Assam, we are essentially talking about the Boro Kosari community. So most of the tribal, I'm sorry to use that term, but most of the tribal communities, they essentially belong to this Boro Kosari larger group, Tibeto-Burman speaking group. So many of the place names, most of the place names in Assam have the prefix D. That means these are all indigenous places. These are all ancient places. And water is connected to that. So there is a theory about that. So settlement pattern essentially is connected to water. Without water, nothing can survive. So that's the basic idea. So rivers, ponds, and streams, these are the three basic elements that we get in our settlements. Without these things, either of these, you have to have a pond. If you don't have a river nearby, then you have to have a river. Most of our ancient settlements, they are on the banks of rivers. It basically the marker of civilization. That's what I have written. But if you see a very different picture in Assam, although like even if my village is near the river, I'll definitely have a pond in my village. So if I have a ready water source in a river, why should I have a pond? in my village or even in my household. So what is the purpose of the pond? That is what we need to ask when we talk about water management. So streams are very essential for potable water, drinking water. So ponds in archaeological context. So I'm moving to the ponds, the narrowing down to ponds only. So this is very interesting. This is one big pond called Raja Pukhuri. It's found in Golaghat district. So it's near Doyang. It's in the Doyang Reserve Forest, inside the forest. The place is known as Telikhal. It's in the Nagaland border. So this is another pond called Vishnu Pukhuri. So both are nearby, and you see a lot of archaeological remains around these ponds. So what is the necessity of these ponds? Ponds, they are actually reservoirs of rainwater. So that is the first example of rainwater harvesting, basically. And then it's a place for social gatherings. It's also used for religious functions and village fairs, everything. Then economic functions like fishing and all, that's also part of the ponds. Then let's move to the historical time frame, basically. So how did ponds actually come into our cultural practices? So it started with the Neolithic period. Neolithic is the migration period of the agro farmers, basically. So people migrated from many regions, mainly through Tibet, Bhutan, and also also through Manipur and all. So through Myanmar and all. So people migrated through various routes, and with them they brought the memory of ponds and embankments in the or fortification in the villages. That is there in the memory of the Kosari tribes. I was traveling among the Dimasa people and also among the Boro people. So both these communities, they have a memory of, it's in their folklore. They have a memory of establishing villages which will have a fortification wall and also a central pond. So that is their settlement pattern. Now, that is the earliest time. Then moving to the pre-Ahom kingdoms, like Kosari kingdoms and Sutia kingdom, and all these kingdoms that existed in Assam, they also have ponds, and they have bigger ponds. Now, not the household ponds that initial smaller communities had. Now ponds have increased their functions. Social functions have started in the ponds. Then the Ahom period actually saw in Assam the the ultimate rise of pond culture. Ahoms, during that period, even commemorative ponds were built, and ponds were used for specific purposes like ritual bathing and all. So ponds are essentially a part of our culture, but currently, if we see, after tube well water, after a lot of new scientific innovations, we have lost the significance of ponds. And that's why whenever I keep traveling in the interiors of the state for my archaeology purposes, and I see ponds being earth-filled. Most of the ancient ponds are being earth-filled now, because people have seen the value of the soil, not the water. The value of water comes through groundwater. So the groundwater exploitation in Assam, if we see the heritage of Assam, groundwater exploitation was not prevalent, never. It was all ponds, basically. And there was specific ways the Ahoms introduced of how to actually extract the subsurface level water from the ponds. They had a pillar in the midst of the ponds, almost all the Ahom ponds. Now, moving away a little from ponds, there are other traditional practices like this bamboo drip irrigation of Meghalaya, and it's also there among the Karbis. So this is very interesting, and this is basically related to the streams of the foothills. So from there they bring the potable water, and then indigenous traditional, then Apatani wet rice cultivation. Along with rice cultivation, they also rear fish. So pisciculture and rice cultivation together. These are little innovative systems that our indigenous communities have done. Then this is very interesting, and I like this very much. The tong system of the Boros, very much. You know why this is important? Because this has been necessitated by the requirements. because the area where these dongs are found, mostly in the Bhutan food hills, the soil is very porous. So people cannot sustain the rainwater. So rainwater harvesting is not possible there. Yes, sir. So they have constructed canals from connecting the river and then to the paddy fields and even to the households. And there is a dong management committee everywhere. So there are a lot of dongs in the northern part of Assam, in the Bhutan food hills. So these are very interesting features. And now I'm not going to talk about the Rig Veda chants and the hymns, but one thing is common in the among the Vedas. If you see Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and then Atharva Veda, all the three Vedas, and then Arthashastra, there is a crisis for water. So water crisis is apparent in the hymns. So that's why they have all these water gods like Varun and other gods, and polluting water is criminal in the Vedas. So this water crisis also actually reflects the migration of the Rig Vedic people from various regions to the Ganga plain, because in the Ganga they found finally the water. So that's the crisis described in the Rig Veda. So I'm not going to talk much about that. The development stage, this is very important. This is where we can take from the traditional knowledge practices and then make some sensitive development plans rather than making insensitive development plans. So the dong system of the Bodos, many people have worked now currently. So that is very interesting. And then this water, the bamboo drip irrigation, that is very interesting. So these 2-3 things, traditional practices, can be scientifically analyzed and scientifically put into practice for development purposes. Thank you so much.
So, any questions?
Yes.
Can traditional water management get reduced intake of climate?
Yes, definitely.
Climate?
Yes, yeah. Climate change, see, climate, not about climate change only, about the soil quality. Let's talk about the soil quality or the quality of, see, the ecology. It will actually keep the ecological balance. See, problem is whenever human beings intervene, we are affecting the ecology. So even if we are making a bamboo drip irrigation, we are actually affecting the ecology to some extent. But to lesser extent, that is what we should try. So rather than omitting greenhouse gas and making some very large scale irrigation projects or large scale dams, we can rely on such good water resources for Assam. These are all very significant and naturally available water resources. But what we are drinking ferrous water, and we are drinking very bad water actually, which is coming from the ground. So that is not the way that actually we should work. We should look for potable water, learn from the traditional tribes, and then keep the ecological balance. So environment degradation, I don't think Northeast India will have much effect because we don't have much greenhouse gas. But still, going forward, we can set some example to the world, isn't it? Yeah. See, I am an archaeologist. I have been saying that. So water, pond, and lot of my friends in outside of Assam, they have been working on wells. They have been working on the groundwater sort of research, and also the water management practices of the dry region, semi-arid regions. So they keep saying that Assam has lot of available water. But when I'm there, when I'm here in my home, I don't see many good available potable water. Water quality is not very good in Assam. So that's something that we can actually look for. There was one news article about one Karbi village some 10-15 years back. I remember that article. It says that the villagers there, they age at the age of 40. They become old because they are drinking some very bad water. But why that has happened to them? Traditionally, they have been drinking stream water, mineral water. So this problem was not there. Suddenly it has arisen, this kind of aging problem among the Karbi communities, mostly in the Mikir Hills area, Karbi Anglong, the northern part. So these are issues that we should highlight. And this is one of the things that I like, and then maybe we can do something good out of it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Nowadays, there is scarcity of land because of rising population. So how we can use pond as a way of water management in present context? Pond as a way of water management in present context. The present context. So nowadays, there is
I'll join you later on.
Thank you so much for the question. This is very interesting. So maybe see, reservoir system is still there. Even among the even in the big cities. So these reservoirs are public properties. There are big reservoirs, and reservoir system was there in the urban settlements of ancient times also. Like the Indus civilization, it has shown us that reservoirs can actually help sustain the scarcity, water scarcity. So Indus people did that, and with the rising population, I think if we work for common reservoirs for a larger community, it will actually help. But see, I understand the issue that households, they may not have enough space to build ponds, because the population is rising. But I think there has to be a balance. It's an ecological balance. Population will also balance out. Okay, so I think that can be done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your paper presentation. And here I want to, it's a theoretical one, so lots of historical knowledge is there. We can know about it, but how you can relate this system of water management in the modern day context, that should be the main focus, according to my view. And to be a research paper, we do not know the objectives behind your paper and also the methodology that you have applied for this paper. So if you add those parts, then it would be a good paper, what I feel. Okay, so that's our suggestions. Okay. Yeah, yeah.